Welcome back to the Mindsets podcast. I'm your host, Angus. Some of you will be familiar with that. Others, if you're new here, great to have you. Today I'm joined by Milo. This has been a long time coming for me. We've been speaking for a little while about doing this and finally got you here. So, do you want to do a little introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name is Milo McCloud. I am currently a fitness coach and I am an entrepreneur, and I come from a background of elite sport and semi-professional ski racing throughout my teens. And now we live in London and kind of balancing work life, fitness life, and also creating content.
Right. There's going to be quite a lot to unpack in this. So going back to early on, you said you come from an elite background. Where did the background start?
When I was 10, I moved to the Alps in a place called Léger, which is essentially the redneck part of France. And they hate Parisians. So moved there when I was 10, went to French school, got bullied in French school for being English, couldn't speak a word of French for 6 months. Finally learned to speak French, got good at skiing, and the French didn't like me, so I had to ski by myself. And eventually the next year, wanted to go back out skiing because I loved it so much. Joined a English ski academy. It was called Kandahar Ski Racing, and then got kind of moved over to another academy when I was 12. And then from the age of 12 to the age of 19, I essentially competed internationally, Canada, Europe, spending 4 to 6 months a year skiing and essentially competing on like a international level, which was at the time, it was amazing. But looking back, you just like, I can't figure out how lucky I was to be able to do that and travel that much as a teenager with my best friends and honestly have the best time of my life. So I'm very grateful for that period. But ski racing is a notoriously underfunded sport. So relying on sponsors, there comes a point where you have to make the tough choice of going to uni or basically committing hard. And I chose to go to uni and sacrifice the dream of becoming a ski racer. But here we are today. And I think that background of ski racing has led to everything that I've gone on to since then, really.
Now, was your school when you were in the Alps, was it actually in the Alps, or did you go down the mountain for school? And
Proper alpine.
So one thing that I was aware of, I spoke a bit in the last episode, Ruby and I had both done a season.
Yeah.
When I was out there, I was very aware that all of the schools, essentially as PE, like their PE class, it was just skiing.
Yeah.
So how often did you have to ski when you were at school?
I think I skied every day.
As part of the curriculum, or was it before school?
Either part of the curriculum, probably every other day. I used to play ice hockey on Wednesday. So you'd have Monday, Tuesday school, Wednesday would be a day off. I don't know why. And then Thursday, Friday, school again. I think we used to ski Monday and Friday. I'd play ice hockey on Wednesday, and then Tuesday and Thursday would just be like normal kind of PE.
Did they make you train any other way for skiing in terms of like any cardio stuff, any strength-based stuff, or was it just ripping the shit out of those beasts?
When I was 10, cardio and strength training wasn't a key focus.
Fair.
But when I got older, for sure, it was a big part of my training. Yeah.
What? Because there'll be some people that might be a little bit more familiar with skiing, Ski Sunday, or whatever.
Yeah.
What was your race?
So I used to do specialize in slalom, giant slalom, Super G. Super G being my favorite. Downhill was the fastest. Basically didn't do downhill because my parents would have probably disowned me, and Super G was the closest you can get to that. So doing jumps, high speed, sending it basically.
Yeah.
And just gunning it down a mountain as fast as you can.
I raced once in Maribel, another area of the French Alps, if anyone doesn't know, and I cannot explain what it was like to be in that starting gate with the little wire that your leg moves. I think it was giant slalom. I was shooting my way down, and the biggest thing was, of all my friends, I wanted to win.
Yeah.
And I looked up at the clock as I was coming around one of the third from last gates.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am so far ahead. Like I have, for my own level, I have smashed this.
Sent it.
And by looking up, I took my eye off the gate and it took my ski off. And I then sent it head over heels down into the mountain. They had to pause the race and get everyone else up. So it wasn't my best move, but it was then that I realized, like, as much as I am blaming it on not looking, my legs were gone.
Yeah, no, it's brutal.
And it is, for anyone that's done like a wall sit,
It's
that's
like
one of
that.
the best ways of training for skiing, because
It's like isometric strength in your quads and your core, and you just have to do that over and over and over and again, and like so much leg training. It's a joke. And plyometrics, it's relentless. I had no upper body strength, but my legs on point.
strong. So when you've obviously been in France for, how many years were you living in France?
So I did a year where I was proper French school, and then from aged 11 to 19 I spent my time in Chamonix, but a British ski academy,
Right.
so everyone was English.
Because my question was going to be, if you decided you did want to compete internationally full time, would you have remained British, or would you have had access to a different nationality of like French because you'd lived there for so long?
No, I don't think, maybe I would, but I also wouldn't want to be French out of pure principle.
So loyal.
Yeah.
So loyal to the UK.
Or just anti-French.
Yeah, well, yeah. But also the British ski team I'm aware of is like you said, struggling funding wise, and it would have been pretty difficult because I mean most of them are still working kind of a full-time job while trying to train for Olympics and world champs every year, and that's pretty rough. What was the ultimate reason? And was it just you that made the decision, or were you guided by parents and that sort of thing?
Yeah, ultimately it was like my parents saying, you can do this, you can commit to this, but you're going to have to support yourself. And to get far in life, as much as we don't want to talk about money and a lot of things, it does allow you to make certain decisions in your life with slightly more comfort. And it gets to the point where the future aspects of skiing financials, you can see them and say, look, I haven't earned any money from the years that I've been doing this. What are the chances I'm going to earn good money in the future on unpredicted outcomes or on competing against other people in an underfunded sport compared to going to uni? Yes, it's a safe option, but I can still go out skiing and still enjoy it. And I actually kind of fell out of love with skiing my last year because I had a lot of like race performance anxiety, like yips, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So ended up, moving on from it and not skiing for about 2 years afterwards. Basically just taking time out because I just couldn't really face going back into it. And now I love it. But as a man who loves après ski and like just enjoying the casualness of skiing now, it's so enjoyable. And I do miss that competitive aspect, but I get that through other areas of fitness.
And to be fair, if you go on a ski holiday with the right person,
it's competitive.
Can be more stupid because instead of having gates to go in and out of, you're going in and out of people and young children that can't ski. Okay, so from skiing, which I appreciate is still a massive love of yours, same for me. Did you move straight from France and skiing to come to uni in the UK?
Yeah, went to Exeter Uni, did sports science. Dropped out of sports science, but always had a love for sports science. But for me, I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was something that without attending university, I was skipping a lot of lectures, a lot of tutorials. I averaged really good grades, and I was thinking, why am I paying whatever it was, $9,000 a year for something that I can basically do learning on YouTube for real? Like, it's ultimately a lot of the lectures you just watch online on a kind of post basis after it's already done. And it gets to the point for me when I was just like, I want to earn money, I want to live in London. I feel like, especially having traveled for a year, kind of you get to that maturity level, and having lived abroad for like 9 years, it gets to the point where you think, I'm actually ready to kind of start my working life, especially when everyone's just like seshing and drinking, and I just was kind of over it by that point. So I just made the call to just drop out, which is quite a big decision.
Huge decision.
I moved to London on pretty much minimum wage, got a job at 12 grand a year, which for anyone that lives in London knows that basically
doesn't cover rent now.
No, basically is TFL charges each week. So yeah, that was kind of the reason why I dropped out.
What year was that you dropped out?
That was 20. I was 19, so I was just before.
Still first year.
Yeah. Just before day before my exams, I dropped out.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I mean, at least you didn't, start the exams and then.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone that's been to university has deeply at one point considered dropping out.
Yeah.
And for me, I almost got too stuck in before I really thought about it. And then it was like, I'm already like, whatever it was, 18, 27 grand in the hole from this. I might as well just finish it off, get the degree, and then see what I can do after.
Yeah.
But everyone is different. And there are quite a few more people now that are realizing that because of the presence of the internet and that sort of thing, they don't necessarily need university anymore. And I think that is very valid. Like, schools do push you down into that route.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the right route for everyone. And you don't need a degree to do an awful lot of things. But you wanted to come to London. Why?
We had a girlfriend. That's why.
Who was in London?
Yeah.
Right.
Girlfriend lived in Fulham. And it was always something that I wanted to do. Both my parents met when they were in London. They both had businesses in London. It seemed like, when you're younger and you come to London with your family, you get that like nostalgic thing. You go to Paddington, you've seen Paddington Bear, and it's just like everything about London is so exciting when you're younger. And the dream of living there for me was such a big kind of career goal at that time. I'm going to live in London after university. I'm going to do it. No matter, I had no idea what I was going to do, but I was like, I'm going to live in London. I'm going to live with my best friends. We're going to live together. We're going to have a great time. Ultimately, things work out slightly different to that, but I love living in London, and the opportunity that it brings to both your career, but also your kind of personal life, meeting people like yourself and other people that are like trying to achieve their goals, pushing themselves both in their career, but also fitness and vocationally, I think there's no other city that you can do that with.
I grew up when I was really young in London, and I then family moved out for school, different schools, and then I went up to university in the Midlands, stayed in the Midlands, working for a while. I've come back down. I really wasn't looking forward to living in London.
Really?
Because everything from my perspective, everything was cheaper in the Midlands.
Yeah.
I could save a lot more money. I could do a lot more things with that money as a result. I found that people were nicer in the Midlands. I didn't feel dirty using the public transport. Everything like that, I was very comfortable. But I was aware that I needed to make a slight change in my career, and that ultimately that would lead me down to London. And I knew that everyone that has come to London ends up loving it. And I was just like, I don't think I'm the sort of person that wants to go out multiple times a week. I don't want to be in, is it Infernos in Clapham? I don't want to be.
Don't tell me you don't know the name.
I didn't want to be the person that was in Infernos 3 times a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I really wasn't sure about it. And now that I've moved down here, I had no idea there was so much going on. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different types of people. There's so many groups of people. And we'll come on to this eventually. The sort of thing that you've set up has opened a massive network of people that, like you said, are driven by the same sort of goals and values that I have. And that's huge for me. And I can only imagine that as much as it was pretty terrifying when you left university to come to London, when you actually got here, as difficult it was, did you find that immediately, or were you a bit like, oh, shit?
Oh no, I was lost for a good few years. I essentially had this kind of relationship that didn't necessarily foster the best in each of us. It was very much one of those relationships that we put on, like, I don't know what you call it, relationship weight. So I was heavy, unfit, didn't exercise. Like I probably didn't go to the gym for like 3 years.
At the time though, did that before those 3 years, was the gym very much part of your life?
Yeah. I was even at uni. Like I had a job at uni, I'd still train. Just because of like the background in skiing, it was always such a big part of my life, and I wasn't training to be in bodybuilding or anything like that. I just trained because I enjoyed it. Well, I fell into a relationship where it just wasn't a part at all, and the kind of training that I used to do kind of turned into Domino's and Papa John's and takeaways, and going out and getting absolutely off my face on a Wednesday and then crawling into work on a Thursday. And it essentially comes down to the fact that all of my friends were still at uni. So I had to make friends by being friends with my girlfriend's friends. And if if you've been in a relationship, you can also attest that your girlfriend's friends or your boyfriend's friends are not your friends, they're their friends. And when you hang out with them, it's because you're friends to a girlfriend. And often after a breakup, you realize that you're probably never going to see those people again. And it kind of didn't set me down a very good path in terms of drinking and other things, both with my own kind of mental health as well as kind of physical health. It was not a good couple of years. But sometimes I do believe that you kind of have to hit an element of rock bottom to realize that this is not what you came here for. I did not come to London to be fat, unhealthy, unhappy. I came here to like make a better life for myself. And this is not the way that I anticipated this going. So there have been those low points, and I think they're incredibly vital. And I look back on them, I'm grateful for them. But to get to those points was absolutely brutal, and I would never want to do that again. But looking back in the kind of head in the mirrors, it feels like a big turning point for me of like mindset shift.
What was the most positive thing you remember about that time?
I set up my proper first company.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in a relationship. I essentially left my job in sales, working in finance, and set up my own marketing agency. We had a rough 7 months. I didn't earn anything, zero, for probably 7-8 months. I remember just racking up credit card debt, borrowing off friends, family to pay rent, borrowing off my girlfriend at the time, and everyone kind of supporting me or just enabling me and not questioning my ideas at the time to kind of push forward in that. And if people did question me, I'd kind of just completely like blank them off. I'm glad I did, because that enabled me to basically work for the next 4 years through that company. And if I didn't go through those 8 months of basically earning absolutely nothing and racking up loads of debt, I never would be in the place I am today.
Just was that teaching in terms? Was it lesson learning in a similar sense of you've gone down a particularly bad route and now you're learning about the real way that life works?
Exactly.
Because starting your own company, it's not as easy as it sounds on paper. This is probably me being like the younger generation, and anyone that's older than me hearing this would be like, "Oh, grow up." It was never easy. But with the idea of internet and everything has to go through an internet system and is so much more quick. I feel like maybe back in the day, it was easier to run a business because everything was done with cash and the books didn't have to necessarily be all up to date. Whereas now, like, everything is so pressurized. And even I started a company in COVID, and just doing the government stuff was stressful enough, let alone actually trying to make it a thing.
Yeah.
And I have pretty much given up on it.
It's really stressful.
Because I still have the name of the company. I'm not willing to let it go. I don't know why. There's part of me that wants to hold on to doing it.
Emotional attachment.
Exactly. And so yearly I pay the fee to hold the name so no one else can have it. But I haven't really done anything with it. And for you to turn it into something in the situation that you're in, I think it says a lot about the fact that you were still able to get something out of that period. But it also says a lot about the fact that the stress of that was clearly impacting your outer life at the time.
Massively.
When you said it was over a couple of years.
Yeah.
When did you start to try to pull yourself out? What made you really realize? What was the moment?
Yeah, so I was with my ex for 3 years in total. And I think from about after the second year, things kind of progressively got worse. And ultimately, it became not really a relationship where we're bettering each other. It became a relationship where I was kind of treading on eggshells. Everything I did, it feels like when you're in that situation that you can't do anything right, and everything that you do is your fault, even if you are going for lunch with your mum. It's kind of, where have you been? What have you been doing? Why have you been doing it? To even going on a night out with friends and saying that I'll see you tomorrow or something like that, and getting hundreds of missed calls, and feeling like you're just basically a punch bag for that person, emotionally as well. And that leads to a physical manifestation of feeling shit about yourself, because when someone is making you feel like that and telling you that you're shit, and you're shit at being a boyfriend, you're shit at doing this or whatever it is, you start to believe it, because it's over such a long period of time and you've fallen in love with this person, that when they're telling you something, you believe it, because the person that they are, that you fall in love with, you think, oh my God, they're amazing. And then you kind of get Svengali'd into this effect where you're absolutely under the thumb, essentially, and lost self-respect, ultimately at the end of the day. And it took essentially a holiday with some of my friends who I essentially didn't see for about a year. We went on a holiday just down to Salcombe, and I just realized that this was the first time I'd been happy in like 18 months. And I was like, this is so fucking weird. I was like, I have not felt like this in so long. We were playing Ultimate Frisbee. I literally remember the moment like crisp. I was like, we were playing Ultimate Frisbee. I was like, I genuinely haven't felt like this in so long. I was like, I need to make this change. I was like, I know what I need to do. And I texted my girlfriend that day and said, look, when I'm back, let's have a conversation. And when I got back, we went on a walk and basically I just said that I'm not happy. And I don't think either of us were happy. And I don't think it was a relationship that could have been saved or be beneficial for either of us. So I think it was one of those that had to be done. Just neither of us wanted to do it. And sometimes those are the most painful ones, but I'm very grateful now that I did do that. Because at the time you can't think about anything else. It's horrific.
Was it a sort of defined cut off at that point? It stayed there?
Yeah, I haven't seen her since.
Some quite rare today for that to go on, but it sounds like probably for the both of you it was the right thing, and quite often what a lot of people should do is appreciate that the time was spent, take it for what it was.
Agreed.
And then move on from it, because ultimately if you're not actually moving on from it, then you're not really learning from it.
No, I agree. I don't regret any of it at all. I think there are lessons for both of us to learn from it, and I think it's definitely a period of my time which I think I could have used better, but the lessons I learned from it in both a kind of relationship and also like an emotional standpoint, I think are super important for me now.
Were you like living together, or were you living separately?
Yeah, so probably the biggest mistake I did was when I moved to London. I'd moved into her place,
right?
Which is definitely on me. Like, I fully respect that. But then after that, we also then moved into another apartment in Wandsworth, and then moved into my apartment in Ealing, both together. She then moved back to Somerset, but essentially we spent 2 years together, living together.
How did the move out situation happen?
She moved back for like health reasons, back home. So it wasn't like a case of, the awkward kind of like, I think we should move separately.
Yeah.
So it was never that. It was more so like, I'm moving home because I'm taking time off work. I want to see my mum, which was fine. And actually, because we're both from the same places, I actually ended up seeing more of my family. So it was never a problem. But the whole relationship compromised of me basically not seeing my friends, and we'd do everything together, which everyone knows that having time to focus on yourself is so important, and there was just never any of that for either of us.
So was that your focus after it ended, was to start spending more time with yourself?
Yeah, I essentially made a 5-year plan.
You made a 5-year plan?
Yeah.
How did that come about? What?
I made a commitment to myself because I feel like I'd been mistreated, and both I feel like I'd mistreated myself.
I was going to say, have you decided that it was you that was mistreating yourself, or was it?
Yeah, it was mainly me that I had a problem with, and I was so almost ashamed that I'd let myself fall into this pattern of just like nihilism, and just like it was just terrible, what was happening, and how I allowed that for myself. So I said, 5 years, I'm not going to get into a committed relationship. I will go on dates and see people and be completely honest with them, saying, look, I'm here, let's have a drink, let's have a nice time, whatever, but I'm focusing on myself. This is like my self-development era, whatever. And I said, look, this is my focus for the next couple of years of my career, and working on myself and like finding what makes me happy, and also getting myself to a point where I'm really happy by myself, to the point where I don't need someone else in my life to make me happy. And if someone comes in and they match, we both match each other's goals, each other's kind of like spontaneity, and we both want to push forward and elevate each other, fantastic. And I don't think you should settle for anything less than that. You should be improving each other's lives, not compromising each other.
I think something that I always thought about, because I was at university when I met my girlfriend, and in all honesty, if you told me that, I think for either of us, like we were going to have a girlfriend or boyfriend that would go on as long as it has since then, we'd have both been like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I think like the biggest thing was I was so comfortable in myself, and like you said, my opinion on it is that you need to be 100% happy with your own time, your own company, and if someone else comes along that can add to that, not take away from it or even just keep it as level, they have to add, so it's more than 100% going on, then that's someone that's worth the sort of the commitment, really.
There's a good analogy. It's like a cheeseburger. You gotta have like you've got to be a really good cheeseburger that's absolutely banging as it is, to be super happy with that cheeseburger. And if they come in, they bring a little bit of bacon, some caramelized onions, smashing.
Pickles.
I don't know about pickles.
Oh, okay.
That's baggage for me.
Okay.
But if they're taking away and you've got no patty left and the meat's gone, your soul's gone, that's not, you've got to be a full burger before you meet someone else. You've got to be happy with that.
I like your analogy. I'm going to rework it and say that for me, the best part of the burger is everything between the bun.
Mm-hmm.
But a burger can be made or broken by the bun.
Agreed.
If you have one of those shitty flour ones that you get from school, or if you've got a lovely toasted brioche bun, that's what you need. And I'm aware that I'm now talking about buns, and that's not what I really mean. Don't turn this into something that it's not. But you want the right thing around the burger to make the burger better.
Agreed. Okay. Definitely.
Cool. Massive tangent there.
Yeah,
I love that. But right, bringing it back, you're into this era and you wrote a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
So was it really detailed? Was it like step by step, this is what I'm going to do? Or was it like this is where I want to be in 1 year, this is where I want to be in 2 years?
It wasn't necessarily this is what I want to be. It was more so I'm very goal orientated. So I have a big goal book and I set out numerous different goals. Those could have been buying a car, it was down to the point of like buying Calvin Klein boxes, something like that, or like getting in shape was literally one of my goals. Just getting in shape. It wasn't competing in bodybuilding. It was just getting back in shape. Then it was buying my first house. Property has always been a massive goal for me, and I didn't think I would be able to do that in a short period of time. But by writing it down and kind of working towards that and driving that as my kind of sole purpose, I was able to achieve that, which is amazing to think. And looking back on it now in that goal book that I've got a highlighter, literally crossing it out. So what the plan entailed was not a time orientated thing of by 6 months I want to achieve this, by 8 months I want to achieve that, small goals, big goals. It was just an amalgamation of everything I wanted to be as a person written down, and as much as I could do. There was no real structure of like how to achieve it. It was like, okay, my mindset's coming back now, so let's like look to improve that by reading a little bit more self-development books. I loved How I Can Make You Rich by Paul McKenna, so I was like, let's read some of his other books. And it was just like a slow progress of improving each aspect that was in that book and kind of making it into the person I wanted to be. and slowly working towards that. But there was never any kind of structure or anything that came with it. It was kind of just trial and error and discipline.
Where are you on that 5-year plan now?
I finished it.
You finished it?
Yeah, so I was 21.
When did it end?
I was 21 when I said that I was going to do it, and I'm 26.
So it ended sometime earlier this year.
Ended in July this year.
Have you sat down and written year 6 and 7, or?
I've sat down and written a few goals for next year, but ultimately the 5-year plan was more so relationship based. It was very much just like, please do not screw yourself over again. So now it's at the point where I'm like, I'm open to meeting people and being just a little bit more emotionally available, whereas the last 5 years have been completely emotional unavailable.
Switch it off.
And closed off from everything and didn't want to feel anything. Which people can say what they want to say about it, but has allowed me to get to the point where I am today, and I'm grateful for that. But I could have missed opportunities for sure to meet the right person, but it is what it is.
If they're the right person, then you wouldn't have missed them.
Exactly.
Okay, so somewhere along this plan, I'm assuming this wasn't written on paper, but when I started following you, I discovered Milo on TikTok about a year and a half ago. That's when I followed, and you were doing gym videos. There was loads of memes in there. I was like, this guy, he knows his memes. I appreciate the location of the memes in the videos. So I was like, yeah, I'll follow. And then one of the things for me, and one of the reasons that I'm so gassed to finally have you on this, is when I started doing my whole podcast thing, or even being interested in making my own content or anything like that, I asked you on one of your videos what microphone it was that you were using.
I remember this.
And I remember you responded like within the hour, and I was like, no way. Like, this guy is such a good bloke, like down to earth, all of this. The main thing initially that drew me into each of those videos, and this wasn't that I felt like you were hitting on me because I knew the target market.
Yeah.
However, where in this 5-year plan did Hello Sexy come from?
It's a great question. Great question. I think I come from a marketing background, in terms of I've always been super interested in marketing and digital marketing. So I used to grow Instagram accounts when I was younger and sell shout outs and shit to pay for at school you could get tuck shop and stuff. So I'd just sell Instagram shout outs and get 50 quid and buy pizza and do
Your
random
school
stuff.
was different. It was lollipops and Love Hearts at lunch for me.
We lived in a town, so you could pop out and get a pizza or lunch. So it was great. But Hello Sexy became a thing because I'm always loved making videos. I can go back on YouTube and watch videos of me when I'm 7 years old, and they're still there. But I've always loved video editing, and it's kind of been a goal of mine to always have a love of fitness, but have a goal of working in fitness in some way or form. So I thought it wasn't going to be sports science because I dropped out of uni. How can I help people now that I've kind of changed my mindset and changed my life through getting back into shape and recording kind of my journey through that and working towards stuff? So I thought, how can I get people's attention in a very short amount of time? Because people have a 3-second attention span now. You've got to grab someone quickly. You've got to grab someone with a unique catchphrase or a unique kind of aesthetic that people recognize you immediately and want to watch you. And if you're consistent, they will remain watching. And who doesn't like to be called sexy?
Exactly.
Most
people are watching these when they're alone. No one sits in TikTok in a room full of their friends, do they? They're on their own, and getting a little compliment like that straight into the video.
Yeah. So ultimately, that led to a slightly more female dominant audience because of that. But now I've kind of adapted some of my content to be not Hello Sexy based. So I still want to have a community where I speak with guys because it's far more relatable, some of my experiences with guys. So I don't want to be completely have my community completely female based. So being able to appeal to both men and women, I think as a creator is super important, because it allows people to meet, especially in person, and whether or not they want to date each other is completely different. But having both men and women, I feel, is really great, just in terms of creating community that can go out for drinks together, and some of the girls can go for coffee together, whatever that is. And the guys can message me about particular things that I've gone through, and I can relate to them more. So Hello Sexy is part of the brand and part of the fabric, but it's not something that I would say defines me.
Yeah. I think that I've noticed as well is like, I noticed your content was kind of shifting into a slightly different way, in like, I don't want to say like a positive or negative way, because I think what you were putting out there before was good, but I think you're right in terms of having this balance. And I've certainly noticed a lot more like guys in your following and that kind of thing, based on the people that we've met at some of the things you've been hosting as well. But you've now, that was all around the time, I assume, that you still had the business that you'd set up, and then you've now become like an online coach.
Yes.
So how does that work? How does online coaching work?
So I essentially, this year my business went into liquidation. So just through market circumstances and just in general, and tried to keep it running for a year, and it was making no money. So ultimately you have to make the hard choice sometimes. And it was very emotional, that decision, but it is what it is. And through everything that I've achieved through that company, I now have certain expenses, which one in London has to pay. Otherwise you're screwed. So ultimately you have to find another revenue source, whether that's through a job or through owning your own company. I also have a property services company, so that has been great in terms of keeping me going. But online coaching is always something that I wanted to do, because I've had so many people reach out over the past few years and said, like, how did you get from X to X, or how did you improve your motivation, your discipline, everything like this. And having a method where you can help people, and having a platform where it enables you to connect with people and help them along their journey has been so impactful for them, but also for me, and enabled me to essentially grow as a coach, but also help people unlock the like value in themselves. A lot of people don't feel like they can do a lot of different things, and when you just give them a small amount of confidence, and you can tell them, right, this week, for example, we're going to run your first 10K. I know you've never run it before, and I don't want you to run it quickly. You can walk, you can jog, you can do what, even if you crawl the last 1K, I believe that you can do it. You can do it. And when people do it and they see that they can do it, it changes that mindset shift of a negative one, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, to what if I can do that? I've just done that. What if I can do this? Maybe I should sign up to a half marathon, or maybe I should do some powerlifting. And it's like helping people to achieve that little switch in mindset, for me, is like been the most profound thing. And getting messages like a screenshot of like a marathon booking, that's like the most unreal thing. Or someone getting like a 5K PB, and that they've never ever run before this, because that was me. Like I'd never really run before this year. So helping people to achieve their own journeys is massive, and building a community around that where people can come and to the kind of revive events, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and meet other people that are interested in the same things and not feel like they're alone. Because a lot of online coaching can feel very like individual, and you're up in Leeds or you're in Manchester and you never see your coach. In London, where a lot of the community is based, everyone can kind of interact with each other and help each other, which I think is a massive part of it.
Now that you've got set up with it, how long have you been doing online coaching now?
So I've been working on it for about a year. We only really launched a few months ago.
How are you finding it? Very different style of work to what you were doing before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of coached a few people in the past, like just off my own back, and then in person and stuff like that. But just, it's never really been a focus for me when I've been working in other sectors. And to be honest, been loving it. And putting more of a focus onto it, I think, has been a massive benefit for me, both in the kind of community aspect of it, but also mentally. Helping other people achieve their goals for me is like the biggest serotonin boost. I feel great doing that.
I think one thing that I've noticed, obviously, you said you've been doing it for a year now. Having seen, like I said, I'd started to see that your content had shifted, but also the way that you were training has shifted, and I feel like your clients must be getting the boost of that because you're doing so many different things.
Yeah.
This year, I'm aware, has been an incredible year for you. Quite a lot has happened, but at the same time, I'm aware that it hasn't always been necessarily easy in terms of things that have happened.
Yeah.
What have been your biggest 3 moments this year?
Best or just biggest?
Biggest.
Okay.
Okay.
Signing the liquidation papers for my company was a real bad day. And this year is not by any means. It's probably been the hardest year of my life, no doubt. Horrific at some points, but also amazing at others. And I think that was a big key moment for me. Second key moment was when I completed the goal that I set out to do, which was running a marathon and also doing a bodybuilding men's physique show on the same day.
I think I know what the third one is. Oh, okay.
Go for it.
No, I don't want to say it. I want to jump to what you said there. So the second one, you achieved a marathon and a bodybuilding competition, which as far as I'm aware, and I assume as far as you're aware, no one has ever done that before?
Nope.
How did that come about? How did you decide that you were going to run a marathon in the first place from where you were doing more like a bit of powerlifting and bodybuilding training?
Yeah.
And then also, not only did you do a bodybuilding competition and get on stage fully tanned up, but you did it at the Gymshark bodybuilding competition in Manchester. Most people would go, what went wrong? What happened?
Well, the business closing was probably a good reason. But I always have wanted to compete since I kind of got back into shape after my relationship, and competing was always a kind of goal. When people come up to you in the gym and be like, oh, you should try go on stage, and you kind of brush it off being like, nah, like, what are you talking about? This only really happens when you're really lean. But I think people come up to you and say, oh, you're like stage lean, or you look like you could be a bodybuilder or whatever. Ultimately, the people that you're competing against are 10 times bigger and have 10 times more PETs. I don't have any. So the way it came about was after powerlifting earlier on this year, I was weighing about 250 pounds, which is about 117, 18 kilos, which is quite heavy.
Very heavy, yeah.
Yeah, I was very heavy. Going upstairs was a bit of a chore. So after that, I had the big goal of cutting down weight for a men's physique show. I knew that I wanted to do that. And I'd put on a lot of muscle, but I'd also put on a lot of fat. So it was a very strict 6-month plan of losing weight progressively over that and making my diet super sustainable. Because I was eating 5,000 calories a day for 6 months.
For some people, that's a YouTube challenge in itself.
Yeah, that's just every day. Okay. Every day. I'd go home after dinner and have dinner. So it was relentless. And it was incremental. So every week, on average, I lost about a kilo a week all the way through those 6 months, looking close to like 30 kilos over that whole period. So it was a very transformative journey, not only physically, but very much mentally and emotionally through that. And a way of cutting that I was implementing was obviously diet being the main one, but through cardio, I said this year I didn't want to get on a treadmill. I didn't want to go on a Stairmaster. I didn't want to sit on a whatever it was, one of those spin bikes in the gym. I didn't want to do any cross training. I wanted to get outside. I wanted to try different sports. That was one thing I wanted to do this year, was just try everything, try anything. Why not? So I signed up to a triathlon because I was like, I want to get out there. I want to try a different sport and I want to help my cutting. That was ultimately the goal. It was just to basically stop myself from doing cardio in the gym. So I did a few swim sessions, got out on the bike a couple of times, started running. Very badly, may I say. I was not good at running. I completed that triathlon, really enjoyed it. Like I'd never done anything like it before. And then after that, that was in August, but in May when I'd started running, I was very, very heavy still. Had shin splints, had knee pain, hip pain. And I thought, do you know what? Like, the only way for me to get into running properly is going to be if I get a goal. Like, I'm so goal orientated. I need to set something in place and I will achieve that. And I need to find that love of running that everyone talks about. What is this running high? Why do I have the running low? Why is it shit? Why does it hurt so much? Why are my feet hurting? Why do my knees hurt? Why is my back hurting? What is this good bit of running that everyone's talking about? I had no idea. So I thought, let's book a marathon.
Yeah.
Me and my best mate, Mike, were watching.
By the way, most people start maybe a 10K, maybe a half.
Yeah.
Let's just book a marathon.
Yeah. Just no half-arsing. So me and my best mate, Mike, were watching hardest geezer, Russ Cook, on YouTube. Watching him run through Africa doing 80K a day or 60K a day, whatever it was.
Ridiculous.
In 38 degrees or 40 degree heat. Madness. Madman. He's doing this every day. All we've got to do is run 42. And he's doing it in outrageous heat, awful conditions. And he's doing it day in, day out, basically on jelly beans. What are the odds that two ex-professional athletes can do it? Pretty high. We can do it. It's going to hurt, but we can do it. So we committed to that around Goodwood Racetrack. We booked it, £30. Not the most notorious place for a marathon, but we decided that was going to be the one. And throughout that training, a month of it was horrific. Feeling pain everywhere. Knees gone, shins gone, calves cramping, everything. Couldn't run 2K at the start. Literally, I'd do about 1,000 meters, have to walk, maybe another K, maybe 500 meters, walk, hills, walk. Couldn't do anything. And then slowly, I basically put in a reward system that I would run to the pub with my housemate and we'd go there. I still wasn't drinking, but we'd have fish and chips or we'd have a Diet Coke at the end of it. And it was like that reward system for me. It was like a 4K loop. And eventually I could do that 4K loop without stopping. And that was the moment then where I started to adventure out onto some longer runs, maybe like 5, 6, 7. I remember that first 8K that I did was the first time I got a runner's high. And I felt like I was Usain Bolt running through Streatham. And it was like the music hit. I wasn't in pain. It was the first run that I didn't have any pain. And I remember texting Mike being like, this is the first time I've not been in pain. And I now get it. But it takes 5, 6, 7, depends on who you are. But it took me 6 weeks for that to even happen.
I think it's weird. I still have occasionally felt this absolute elation. And then as a result of that, I probably pushed myself slightly too far and then I hate it again. But I noticed that after about 4 or 5 weeks, I stopped thinking about the entire run. When I started, the entire run was how far can I go before I die, but also how far am I going to make myself go? So if I knew that I was going to go and run to somewhere and then back round to where I was living, I would be like, the whole time I'd be like, okay, I've just got to make it to that corner. How far have I got left? And I'd be working out in my head. I'd be like, okay, I've got about 2K left. And then 10 seconds later, okay, I've done that 50 meters. And I was just thinking about that the whole time. Yeah. Whereas now, and after those 4 or 5 weeks, the music goes in or a podcast or something, and I switch off.
Yeah.
My feet do their own thing. I try to keep them at the same rhythm. Sometimes Strava man gets in my ear and tells me what my
turn them off.
Yeah. And sometimes I just go out and explore.
Yeah. London's great for that.
And you can, you'll see some of the maddest shit in London as well. You'll be out on a run and 2 cars, like last night I was running, 2 cars decided to drive towards each other in the middle of the road. Both drivers got out and decided to have a shouting match. Buses weren't having it. And it, that distracted me for a nice 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it was. I was able to switch off the part of my brain that was hating everything and just sort of look around and get a bit more comfortable and enjoy what I was doing, being out and about.
I think that's the biggest shift, is that when you stop clock watching and start enjoying that process and thinking, I don't need to be anywhere. I'm not in a rush for anything. Let's just enjoy it. This is my time. I'm not on my phone. No one's distracting me. It's on Do Not Disturb. I don't need to be anywhere. No one needs me for anything. I'm here doing this for myself. when you do that, you just have that like deep breath and you think, I can chill. I'm going to enjoy this for every benefit that it gives me.
Now, I can appreciate that that's how you were training when you had Goodwood in sight. And Goodwood happened on December the 3rd. And I remember being on my phone on the sofa one evening after a draining day at work, and I went on Instagram, and then you have decided to go and do a relaxed 10K. What the fuck happened that evening?
I'd had a particularly interesting day of work, and something had obviously gone wrong. And running has, throughout that journey, been a way of figuring out how I feel about certain things. And often we can make really rash decisions based in the moment. And I set out a kind of rule for me and my business partner that if we are feeling a particular way after something's come up, we both just go out, we go on a run, we come back to it the next day. So I thought, okay, said to my housemate, I'm going on a run. I'd just come back from having lunch out, hadn't eaten dinner. It was about 6:00, and all I'd had was I think I had a chicken breast and some rocket for lunch. And I was like, I'm going on a run, probably be 10K. I'll be back in like an hour. Not going to send it too hard, take it chill. Pouring rain, standard London evening in August. Basically hit 10K, and I turned off all of the notifications on Strava that tell you your pace, whatever it is, you've hit kilometer X, put on do not disturb. And then essentially looked at my phone. I'd run around Clapham, I'd run around Battersea, and I'd also run around Tooting. And I was on about 17K at that point. I thought, do you know what? When I was in Battersea Park, I looked at the Shard from a distance and it lit up at the top. I thought the Shard looks quite good. Why don't we just run over there? So went across Battersea Bridge, and I just know that route so well. So I didn't have my phone out at all. Ran to the Shard. I think I was basically around 30K then at that point. And my phone had died. My headphones had died. Well, my phone was about to die. So it was on airplane mode. GPS still allowed. My headphones had died, but they're over-ear ones, so I had to wear them. So I'm jingling around.
Lovely sweat.
Yeah, and so I couldn't listen to anything. And I had to run home. And by the time I got home, I'd run 43 kilometers on a wild Thursday evening. And my housemate opened the door. He was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No." And it was like the first moment for me where I realized that what running had given me was a way for me to process my emotions. It wasn't something that was just a physical activity. It wasn't, I'm going to go on a run for some calories and increase my expenditure. It was, this is a way for me to think through my own thoughts and process them and come back the next day with a clear mind. It's not just a physical activity. And for some people that seems absolutely fucking mad. And I get that because I was in a huge amount of pain the day after. But what it then led me on to was such a clear mind. And I cannot explain that to someone that doesn't run. It's kind of like it just wipes all the shit off. And everything that you're overwhelmed by kind of just gets cleared.
I think the thing is, I completely agree. You could lock yourself in a room with nothing in that room, almost like solitary confinement, and you could sit there and be like, I'm going to sort this out mentally, and you won't. Because for some reason, there are still, in an empty room, you can still be so distracted by so many thoughts.
Yeah.
And for some reason, when you're running, you're so focused on achieving the purpose of the run, and that I think you become so internally motivated that you focus on what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
And as much as, and this is one of the things, when you get more experience at running, you can switch off worrying about your pace and everything like that, and not dying. You can start to think your way through those problems. And that's certainly like, people can probably actually figure out, I've never thought about this, people can probably figure out how people are doing mentally by looking at their Strava distances.
Probably good.
Because if you see someone's doing 5K a week, they're Gucci, they're fine. If they're doing 20Ks 3 times a week, that person might need a little check-in.
Yeah, unless they're marathon training then
Yeah. And well, for this marathon, so first and foremost,
yeah,
that video is what made me start running.
I love that.
And we're doing some very different types of runs today as a result of that. And was that marathon what made you decide that you could do a marathon on the same day as your bodybuilding competition, which was still before Goodwood?
To be honest, I didn't know that I could do a marathon on the same day of the bodybuilding competition. I said I'd maybe do a half to my management. I said, you know what? I reckon I could do a half marathon to my mate James. And he was like, sounds sick. I back you. And then I saw Gabriel, who you might know. He's a big runner and he is incredibly fast. I think he does 2:30. I may be doing disservice. He may be quicker than that.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, for a marathon. He said, why don't you just do a marathon on the same day? Obviously, he's a runner.
Yeah.
But I was like, I mean, you have a point. It sounds better. So I just thought, how hard could it be? And it was really hard. So it kind of led to all my training for the bodybuilding competition, doing 30k runs whilst kind of depleting and having such low calories.
I was going to say, you're not eating much at all.
So yeah, we were kind of sticking to 2,000 calories, if that, for a lot of the last few weeks, whilst kind of doing 25k, 32ks, not fueling, not doing anything, black coffee at the end, no pastries for me. It was really hard. Probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do psychologically.
Yeah. And I think the funny thing about it is you obviously came off stage, like I said, fully glowed up.
Yeah.
With that. How did the bodybuilding competition go? You obviously said that there wasn't a comparable.
No. There were only 2 natural people in my class. Everyone else was on some sort of performance enhancing drug. And I came first out of the 2 natural people.
Oh, that's
so I came
so you won.
Second last, but
you
first. Yeah, I won. But it was, do you know what? It wasn't, I said to other people about it, it wasn't something that I've ever thought to compete against other people in. It was for me to see what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
That was always my thoughts. Even a few years ago when I first got lean, I saw what could I do? What are my limits that I could push this to, especially with certain insecurities that we will have, but particularly aesthetics wise, not kind of matching and being out of proportion in some areas, and just seeing what I could genuinely just push myself to do despite this has always been a big goal of mine, to show to other people that yes, right, you may have a bit of scoliosis, or you might not have the best insertions or whatever it is, but you can still push your body to do it. And there's no rule saying that you can't get on stage, you can't show the world what you're capable of, and you can't be proud of that. So for me, getting on stage, I just said to myself, just enjoy it. You've done 6 months of work for this. You're not going to win. You're not going to beat the guys out there that are weighing double you. You're going to just enjoy this process because this is what you set out to do. And you know what? After this, none of these guys are going to go run a marathon, are they? So we're going to win that. And I didn't know if I was going to finish the marathon, but I said, you're going to go run a marathon. We're going to get it done. And I had barely any water and I was really struggling that day. But just the vibes and the enjoyment I got from being on stage just carried me through the whole of the rest of the day.
Got the marathon done.
Got it done. Yeah.
And then you sort of started to actually prepare more properly for your marathon, and it was going so swimmingly.
Yeah. So we now at this point in the marathon prep, we've done 2 marathons, which is not in general advised. But for me, it was very important to know that I could do it mentally. But it was more so as a physical pursuit. I knew that I could reach that distance. I knew what that pain felt like. I wanted to know what I'm going to be facing on the day. I didn't want to go into it with that kind of oh, I've run 36k, but I've never done the 42. I don't know how those last 7k are going to feel, or 6k. So going into it, I knew, going into the Goodwood Marathon, I knew what to expect. But this time, I wasn't going to finish. I was going for a time. And I put the pressure on now of right, you've done a marathon, you know what you can do. Now it's time to take it up a notch. I know this is technically my first actual official marathon, but why should I go slow?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm always pushing myself.
What was your pace goal per kilometer?
4:55.
That's rapid. Considering it's like your first as well.
It was sub 5.
Yeah.
So it was sub 3:30 was the goal. Originally it was sub 4. Then as I got through prep, I was like, we can go quicker than that. So I dropped it down to 3:30, ended up doing 3:24. And it was in the rain. It was brutal.
So this is something that I didn't realize. I knew that you were doing this, and I didn't know what your projected time was. But what I can say that I had no idea with Goodwood is that I just assumed, like every other marathon that you see, New York Marathon, London Marathon, there is a route and you start and you finish. I became aware of your Strava map when you were at Goodwood, and was it 11 laps?
11 laps, yeah.
Running the same thing 11 times
Yeah.
has to be like mind-numbing.
Yeah. The problem was as well is that the spectators for a marathon like that, they were only 100 meters long, the stands, and because it was raining, no one was going around the track supporting other areas of the track. So you have 100 meters of support, and then you have 4.1 kilometers of your own head and the rain and the wind. So it was the first 25k, me and my best mate that were doing it, Mike, we would essentially slipstream each other to battle the headwind and the rain. So he would go in front and I would go in front. And the 25k, we separated. He was going for sub 4. He ended up getting 3:40, which is amazing.
Sick. That's well under 4.
And I was going for 3:30 and got 3:24. So both of us were super happy. And ultimately, those last few kilometers, when you're by yourself in the rain and the wind, you've got to you find what you need to find to get it done. There's nothing else that will get you through it. No matter what training you've done, it's just all in your head at that stage.
And you were obviously balancing this whole thing in terms of you did it. I can imagine that it was amazing. You're probably in quite a lot of pain. I was thinking, he's balancing this, he's balancing Revive, which we'll talk about now, and then, you know, he's probably going to take a week off, chill out, figure out what he wants to do. Less than a week later, you did a 5k.
Yeah, 6 days.
6 days you did a 5k like race, basically.
Yeah, race. Yeah.
And you went and just set a PB in that as well, right?
Yeah, we did a 19:05, which was pretty outrageous for me. I used to run a 5k in 30 minutes at the start of June. That was my 5k time.
Which is mad. Marathon in sub 3:30 and then a 5k sub 20 is insane within the space of a week, especially when it's first time for both.
Yeah. And
then again, just talking to you, there's more mad stuff planned for next year. What's going on? It's just continuing. You seem to be on this upward ramp. And is it part of where you see yourself in a year's time that you want to do this, or are you just doing it like you said at the beginning this year? You want to give everything a go and see what happened. Is it still on that sort of wave?
It's definitely an element of like giving everything a go, but it's also what am I bad at that I could get good at? It's like I was terrible at running. I was literally the slowest person at cross country. I can't even remember even finishing it. I think I might have even had to pull out 2 kilometers around school. Like running was an embarrassment for me. Even my parents think that I look weird running, and I don't blame them. I look weird running. But that had manifested itself to me essentially banning running out of my life. And since going into it, I've realized that no matter how shit you are or you think you are at something, you can get into the top 1 or 5% of that given sport if you commit a certain amount of hours to it. Whether that's running, whether it's ice hockey, whether it's tennis, whether it's ping pong, whatever it is. If you are committed and you want to achieve it and you have a goal in sight and you've got a time-oriented goal, you've got to get it done. You've got to put the training in, otherwise it's going to show. If I don't rock up and do a 30k, my zone 2 training is going to suffer and I might not get that 3:30 goal. And it was always in my mind, if I don't put in those training days where I feel like absolute death, then it's going to show on race day. It's always in my head. And I'm calling myself out by saying, I'm going to get 3:30. If I don't get 3:30, the only person that's responsible for that is me. I can't blame it on any external factors. I know I put a nail in my foot, but again, that is my own doing. Can't do anything about that. Luckily, it was a table week, but it's all about, for me, trying stuff that I'm bad at and reframing my mind to saying, all right, you're not great now, but you could be really good, and trying new stuff like that. And also, again, it's a really good way for me to process thoughts and feelings. And if there's an emotional attachment to it, like I've always loved mountains, so anything revolving mountains is something that I find incredibly interesting for any kind of challenge focus.
And that's leading into something you're doing next year, right?
Yeah, climbing Mont Blanc.
Pretty sick.
Yeah, it should be really good.
Going to be pretty cold. What time of year are you doing it?
We're doing it in June because that's the earliest you can climb it safely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, you can do it in winter, but it's quite dangerous with the amount of snow they have. And you can't do it without a guide.
Right. Now, I'm hoping that this isn't some sort of sick surprise that you're going to make the Revive Club do. But do you want to talk a little bit about what the Revive Club is? Because I'm aware that I'm part of it.
Yeah.
It has grown pretty quickly as well. Something relatively sizable.
Yeah, it was about 8 weeks ago. A friend of mine, Jenny, she has a run club and it's done phenomenally well. And I thought there's such a big community of people in fitness in London that want to try new things and want to meet people on the weekends that don't go out on a Friday and get smashed at Infernos, but go to bed early on Friday and think, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 and go for a run or whatever that is, or go train, do CrossFit, go to the gym. And since stopping drinking, I've always wanted to have something on the weekend to look forward to that will take me away from that Friday FOMO feeling. It's quite a good little phrase there. And I thought, how can I create a club that not only combines what I like in terms of running, but also in terms of actual like physical strength training? Because I'm not just a runner. Like I don't have a runner's build. I'm heavy. I love weight training. I love other aspects of training. I love conditioning. So we thought of combining different activities, but with the same people, that allows people to do maybe a run one week and then high rocks and maybe some other conditioning. But by doing it with the same people, it feels a lot less intimidating because they don't have to meet new people every week, which for me, as someone that is kind of introverted generally, I'm pretty nervous when I meet new people. It kind of turns me away from trying something new. So if you're trying new things, but with the same people, it kind of eliminates that first initial kind of, I don't want to go because I don't want to try and make friends. But if you know every week that the same people are going to be there, you've had coffee with them on Wednesday, you've made friends with them, it makes it such a more relaxing state. And in the last 8 weeks, we started with runs when it was nice weather, alternating with high rocks, kind of conditioning. And now we're focusing predominantly each week on doing high rocks conditioning because the weather is so crap. I can literally hear the rain.
I don't know if anyone can hear outside, but it's just started absolutely pissing it down. Well, I mean, you've effectively grown a bit of a community.
Yeah.
When I say a bit of a community, it's got quite big already. I mean, on Saturday's event, there was 50 people there, but I think in the groups that you've got, there's almost like 400 or 500 people.
Yeah, I think on Facebook it's 500 and WhatsApp it's like another 250. So,
which is insane. But in terms of communities, it's got to have been a good 10 minutes ago. So anyone else that remembered that I never got to point 3 on your list, well done. I figure, because I said I think I know what your third biggest event of the year would be. Was it joining a new community and getting your discount code in time for Black Friday?
Yeah, it probably would have been, yeah.
How did that come about?
So, signed with Gymshark this year, which was a life goal. Proper, like, teenage me inside here was smiling and has been since.
Probably doing more than smiling.
Yeah, like, just absolutely buzzing. Like, you know when you kind of meet a celebrity or someone that you think you just like look at someone on like a TV or film, you think I would be really good friends with that person.
Yeah. So
you don't like go up to them and then your friend's like, oh, go get a selfie with them. You don't want to get a selfie with them because you're just like, no.
That's not what I do because we're going to be mates.
We're going to be mates.
Yeah.
I was like that with Gymshark. I was like, I don't want to like go and ask to be like an ambassador. I don't want to like tag them in loads of things. I don't want to push too much, because I know in my head I'm going to work with them in the future. I'm going to make that happen. I don't want to come across like I'm begging for it and I really need it. I want to create content that they want to work with me, and I want to create a community that respects that, and that I'm not going to be plugging loads of different brands and pushing these kind of things. It's always been a brand for me that I've wanted to work with, but I was never ever going to force it, because a lot of the time with kind of social media, you can really push things and it can come across well, not in the best way. So I thought, how can I do this? The main thing is improving my content, improving the way I come across on camera, and that was always a big focus this year, is to do that. And then also trying new sports. I actually met Lucy, who was one of the managers at Gymshark, just spontaneously, and it was one of those moments where you think, is this like fate? Because we were also talking, me and my management were talking with Gymshark at the time, and then I met Lucy, didn't know what she did. We ended up having a chat for like half an hour, still didn't have any idea what she did. I'm just talking about fitness and goals and things like that. And then she was like, oh, I work at Gymshark, what do you do? I was like, no way, we're literally in discussion with you. And she was like, oh, I know your manager. And then kind of the rest is history. But it took a pretty long amount of time from that chat to actually happen, where kind of signing of the contracts. But from that moment on, it just, it was a bit surreal for me to be able to say that I work with them. And it's not, it's just like, it's mad sometimes to think about if you go back on my Instagram and you see like the early videos of me like doing pull-ups in the park, and just thinking that guy was always trying to get to the point where he is now. It's wild.
How is it being a Gymshark athlete?
It's do you know what, like the community is great. Like and just the people there, like unreal, and going to some of the events they host and going to the gym there, and working with Adam and Lucy before Adam left. So they're really good people. I think that's it. Like when you go into fitness, especially like in content creation, you look at all these like big fitness magnets like Gymshark, Vanquish, these supplement companies, and think how does it all work? Like it all seems so big. Like I don't know what I'm doing. All I want to do is like build my community and focus on this, but like I need to pay my bills. And there comes a point where it's kind of like, how do I do that? And then you get to a stage where your content is growing, and you're doing better videos, doing better photos, whatever that is. You're providing more value, and these brands say, we like what you're doing. Would you consider working with us? And whether that's a yes or a no, it's like you realize how small that world is, and a lot of the managers also know each other. So if you're not a right fit for one, you could be another right fit for others. So anyone that is looking to kind of start creating content and has this fear of this whole big world of how to work with brands and how to do this kind of stuff, is realistically a very small world. But for me, it's been a great journey to work with each brand that I have done, and I'm looking forward to next year to see what's possible. But yeah, Gymshark's been a great start. I would not be here without them, probably.
Awesome. So I mean, I remember being a teenager as well, and Gymshark starting and everything like that, and being like, this is amazing. And you look at people like Scott, he's like pretty much the face of Gymshark for a period, and just these people which you now will get the opportunity to meet at some of their events and that sort of thing. Does that, a bit like you said, you don't want to take selfies with these people because you're now, you know, you're an athlete alongside them.
Yeah,
I can still imagine it feels pretty surreal when you are there.
Yeah, that's it. It's like from watching social media when I wasn't in fitness and seeing all these people, like Ross Edgley, for example. Like I used to watch Ross Edgley so much when I wasn't in fitness, just because I found his stuff like super motivating. And then training in the same gym as him and just like being on a shoot, and he's just there training. I'm like, it's just weird. And you see people and you think, wow, this is so surreal. And you meet them and you think they're just so normal. They're so nice. And I've never had an experience where, I mean, luckily I've never had an experience, you know, when you say don't meet your heroes. But every person, I think it is unique to the fitness space that most people in fitness are driven and motivated and care about other people because they provide value to other people. So for me, meeting those kind of childhood heroes and positive motivators has never had a bad experience for me. It's always been a positive one, which I'm super grateful for.
And are you aware now that you are one of those people for other people?
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, yeah, I am. Like I do have an impact on people's well-being and their mindset, and that those messages mean the most to me when I get a DM from someone that says, you helped me get my first run, or I've literally just found some motivation to go on a walk, or you're the reason I started in the gym 9 months ago and I've lost X amount of weight. Those messages, and I think every single person that has a community in fitness would agree that they mean the most, because they're so personal and someone has taken the time out of their day to say that to you is unreal. Whereas most people will kind of spread hate in the DMs, whatever it is. Getting a positive DM like that is just, it means the world. So obviously there are elements of imposter syndrome where you think, like how am I doing this? Who actually cares? And then you get those moments and people reach out and you think, okay, I need to keep doing this. This is having a good effect. This is like helping people.
There's a particular video that comes to mind, which I wanted to touch on actually. You put a video out. Obviously, you were getting your top off, amongst other things, for your bodybuilding contest, and you made a video about that. You're actually not really that comfortable doing that all of the time.
No.
And you kind of went into it. Was it rib flare?
Yeah.
You have, and it's an insecurity of yours. And
Big time.
how do you deal with that? Because I can appreciate that insecurity doesn't just go away.
No.
It's a constant battle. And in terms of advice for anyone listening that has an insecurity about something and the way they look, what do you do about it?
I think my biggest piece of advice is to like make it your strength. Like, you are unique by your insecurity. If you embrace it and use it to your advantage, it can help so many other people in terms of that mindset that you've now adopted. You own it, you accept it, you make it yours, you don't give a shit what anyone thinks about it. And then you put out a video, for example, what I did, discussing how because of my spine, I had anterior pelvic tilt, which caused rib flare, and pectus excavatum, which basically like, it's kind of like pigeon chest, but it's not that severe now because I worked on it. That's the main thing. Like, I was so insecure about it that I wouldn't take my top off, and I had no idea what it was either. Someone pointed it out to me on a YouTube video I made, and that was like the start of it. I didn't know I had a problem until
Oh wow, okay.
It was
So it's like a
identified.
late developed insecurity as well.
I just thought my ribs were just a bit sticky outy.
Right.
And then someone was like, oh, you've got rib flare. And then that video just continues to, like, constant rib flare, or like pectus, whatever it was. And then I started making kind of connections about why I have it, what that triggered. And then for me, it definitely did impact how I felt about myself and what that kind of meant in terms of my bodybuilding stuff, which I wanted to go on stage, and realized it wasn't desirable. So it's like, oh, shit, maybe I'm not meant for bodybuilding. But then it took me a while to get over that. So the first thing for me was correcting anterior pelvic tilt, which is basically tilting your hips back into a neutral position.
I think I have a bit of that actually.
A lot of people have it.
So what are the steps to?
A lot of strengthening of your kind of glutes, hip flexors, quads, but also stretching. A lot of people have tight lower body and their hips because we're in this sedentary position all the time. And also strengthening your core, lower back. For me, getting back into fitness, I did a lot of calisthenics training, which helped. And then it allowed me to have the ability to like tuck my ribs down, so I could squeeze my abs to push my ribs down, so that when I did take my top off, you couldn't really tell. But it took a long time to get to that. And since putting out those videos, I had so many guys, mainly guys, there are also girls as well, but it's more common in guys, reach out to me completely terrified of how they feel. And a lot of them are young teenagers that are kind of like going through puberty, that have access to internet and are scared at seeing their ribs and feel like they're different. And ultimately it's accepting that you are your body. You can't change every aspect of it. And if you can help other people that have the same thing and be a positive kind of reinforcement for other people and say, look, it's not going to kill you. It's not going to make you a worse person. In fact, it can make you a better person if you use it right. So that's what I've tried to do. And I think the response from that has been amazing. And even people in the fitness space that I didn't know have it have come out to me and said, thank you so much for making that. I never knew anyone had that. And that has been a big win for me, making stuff like that and getting over it myself. But still, I struggle with it, and just getting over it is tricky.
So, I mean, if we go back to the start of this conversation, we've gone right from the beginning of everything and talking about skiing and into some insecurities and what you've been able to achieve now and what you're looking ahead to do next year. If you could give yourself 3 pieces of advice, going from when you were younger, at any 3 points, you can define them, but what would the 3 pieces of advice be if you could sit your old self down in a room?
Probably the biggest one is just keep going. Like, the consistency will beat anything. If you're consistent in anything, you will succeed in it, whether that's running, whether it's business. I know you're going to fail probably a lot of times, like I have, but if you're consistent in it, you're going to achieve success along the way. Biggest thing, just keep going. Just keep going. That's what I say to my clients as well. Doesn't matter if you miss part of your session, you showed up, you are consistent in rocking up to the gym. If you're consistent in brushing your teeth, you're going to have good teeth. If you're consistent in doing your morning routine, you're going to have a better day. Stay consistent. Biggest thing. Second one, which is also a big thing for me, which is do the things. Imagine myself as the person I really, really want to be. What's the best version of myself in the future? What do they look like? What do they do? When do they get up? When do they go to bed? What do they eat? Write down all of those habits that amazing version of me does and start doing them. You will become that version of you if you do that. There's no way that you won't. That's probably the biggest thing that I've learned in the last year and a half about putting those in place. I want to run a marathon. What would that marathon runner do? He'd get up at 7 or 6, get his run done before work. He'd do his nutrition, he'd make sure it is done, and he'd stick to it. That has taken me there. And thirdly, is essentially just having no quit and applying grit. There's a point at which all of that training means nothing, and you just have to fucking pull something out. And having the mental strength of just be, I'm not stopping. Like, pain is a privilege. The pain that I get here at 39 kilometers in, I cannot get by doing anything else. That privilege can only be achieved from doing the 39 Ks. And I'm going to hold on to that and use it as drive. But you cannot get that without doing the 38 Ks. And I saw someone talk about it. It's like that feeling of crossing the 100-mile mark. You can't get that without having to do the 99 miles before it. It's that same like grit to just get it done. It's not pretty, it's not fun, but it's the most rewarding thing you ever do.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I've really enjoyed talking through that and learning more from yourself. I think obviously you can plug obviously the Revive Club we've plugged a little bit there. I, as a person that goes along every week, have thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know how I am now doing things that are on the brink of being CrossFit, when I always said I would never do that, but it's actually annoyingly quite fun. And some of the runs and stuff through London, it's different routes that I would normally do. I've met some amazing people at those events as well, and it's really sort of motivating to meet those people, and they're all so lovely.
Yeah.
What else would you like to plug? Obviously, you've got your online coaching.
Yeah. So if you are interested in training, it's milomccfit.com. And if you want to join the Revive kind of group and show up to any of these events, it's in my Instagram bio. which is MCC Fit UK. TikTok is MCC Fit, and same with YouTube. So yeah, plenty more to come. It's going to be a big year. Looking forward to it, and hoping to take a good community of people along with the ride.
Awesome. And based on the fact that this podcast is probably coming out before Christmas still, if you're a person that's listening and hasn't done all of your Christmas shopping yet, shame on you. But what code can they use?
Code McFit, MCC Fit.
I don't have a code that you can use, so we'll use yours for now.
Gymshark Christmas list.
Gymshark Christmas list. There we go. But no, seriously, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
And I don't want to say that I look forward to this weekend with another High Rock session.
It's the last one.
I'll be there. It's
gonna be good.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for listening, guys. And any of you that have been watching on the YouTube, then leave a comment, subscribe on there. If you want to follow along and subscribe to the Spotify podcast as well, that's fantastic. You guys probably know by now, but I have at mindsets_podcast on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. So feel free to join in with the journey and see who we've got coming on a little bit in advance as well. So it's been a pleasure to have you join us, and I look forward to catching you guys in the next one.